Hi guys, we are just getting fired up here. We're a couple minutes early still, so we will hang out here for just a second and then we'll get started. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started here. Looks like we've got a great group of attendees on today and really excited to be able to do this. We've been doing these every week here for the past couple weeks, and we're going to continue to do these every week through the end of the year. So if you like what you hear today and you want other members of your team to join, certainly there will be opportunities for them to do that with us in the future. Before we get started, I wanted to mention a couple things real quick. One, most importantly, we want to try and be as engaging as possible here. Sometimes webinars can be a little bit difficult to capture your attention, but we want to make sure that we're talking about things that matter to you, that we're answering your questions. So the way that we do that in a webinar is in the chat window there. You can go ahead and chat in questions or submit questions. My name is Kevin Woodworth. I'll be giving the presentation. I've also got Whitney and Jesse on from Qualsys, who will be helping to answer questions as we go. So feel free to chat those in. If you've got something on your mind, we want to go ahead and answer it. I'll try stop every now and again and take some of those questions kind of live for the group as well, so others can hear and see some of the questions that are coming in. But please be sure to be engaged with us and to be typing in questions as they pop into your brain as we go through the presentation. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is primarily going to be focused for newer dealers or customers that are newer to Qualsys. So we're going to kind of go through everything from A to Z. We've got a great agenda here for you today. We'll take about 2 hours to go through this. Sometimes we go a little faster than that, sometimes a little bit slower. It just depends on how much time we spend on certain things and the types of questions we're getting. But 2 hours is about right. We'll spend time going over the overview, the hardware, the software, getting started, some of the testing and tools that are available on the panel to you, some additional programming, how to get tech support, how to use our dealer portal, things like that. So we'll kind of go through all this together here today. I'm going to skip past the overview video here because it doesn't play well on GoToWebinar, so we'll get right into the slide deck here. I do have one slide on who Qualsys is as a company. I don't like spending a ton of time on us, but I do feel like if you know where we come from, you'll better understand the product, kind of the thinking behind the product. You'll be better at selling it, installing it, troubleshooting it, etc. So Qualsys is a Silicon Valley company. We're a technology company from San Jose, California. We were founded in 2010, and the two co-founders are not actually from the security space. There's a lot of us from the security space now who work at Qolsys, but originally our founders didn't really come from the security space. They came from the high-tech space, the technology space. And if you think about what was going on in 2010 when they founded the company, many of the security systems, as you looked around in that day and age, looked the same as they did in the year 2000, the year 1990, and the year 1980. They really hadn't changed a lot by 2010, with very few exceptions. And that really kind of became the impetus for Qualsys as the founders looked around, saw what was in their own homes, and then compared that to what they were seeing in the consumer marketplace, what was in their pocket. You know, they were already on their third iPhone by then. They really knew that there was a gap that they could help bridge and bring better technology to this industry and ultimately to our customers. When we first got started, we knew partnerships would be very important to us, none the least of which are the people on this call today. Our dealer partners and the professional security channel is very, very important to us. It's what we're committed to, helping you compete in the marketplace, designing and building product that makes you successful and that consumers want and need. So that's first and foremost. On the technology side, though, we kind of have four key partners that we deal with every single day. And the first one is Foxconn. You may or may not have heard of Foxconn. They're one of the largest manufacturers in the world. They make every iPhone, iPad, Dell computers, Cisco routers, Xbox Connect, you name it. If it's kind of a high-end or well-known consumer electronic product, it's probably made in a Foxconn factory. And they've been a fantastic partner of ours. They've got a tremendous scale and resources, and that really helps us bring to market a product that's both reliable and has good quality, but also looks and feels like a consumer technology product that you'd expect today. Second partner is Android, and we decided early on to build on top of the Android platform. This gives us, again, a lot of leverage, a lot of scale, and it allows us to not have to necessarily reinvent the wheel on everything that we do. We get software updates, we get menu structures, we get a great operating system as a base. We actually use a kind of a secure version of Android. It's called Android SE, stands for Security Enhanced. It's a token-based version of Android. We take it and we turn it into a real security system. But this is a really powerful feature that keeps us fast, keeps us nimble, keeps us developing. And as you get into the panel and you start to play around with it, when you go through programming, you're going to see a lot of that familiar Android flow. And again, that makes it really easy, whether you're a technician or whether you're a customer and end user. It's just kind of intuitive and useful. Third, we partnered with Alarm.com, and hopefully everybody here knows who Alarm.com is. It's been a great partnership for us. They were founded in the year 2000, pretty early adopters of technology in their own right. We partner very heavily with Alarm.com. So every Qualsys panel talks to the Alarm.com backend. We use them as our cloud service provider. They provide the app and the kind of the end user experience, cameras, things like that from that end. We, on the engineering side, on the technical side, we work very closely with them to have a tight integration. We kind of have an internal mantra at Qualsys that anything you can do from the panel, you should be able to do from the back end. We believe that this provides, lower cost of service, provides more flexibility in servicing your customers and in your business model. And so that's very important to us to have this tight, kind of deep integration with Alarm.com so that the panel and the back end work as one and really work together and look and feel the same. So you'll certainly see that as we go through here. And then Qualcomm, if you're not familiar with Qualcomm, they're a chipset manufacturer. They make, they kind of own the rights to LTE and Bluetooth. They make a Snapdragon chipset, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, and chipsets for millions and millions of smartphones worldwide. Just a really great technology partner to have on the hardware side. I want to talk briefly about the panel. This is what we call internally, we call this our Gen 2 panel or second generation panel. It's called IQ Panel 2. We're now releasing or have released and are in market with what we call IQ Panel 2 Plus, which is kind of a slight variant on IQ Panel 2. But for us, when we think about this, we think about this in kind of better in every way. And when I say that, we're talking about our first generation product to our second generation product. So much like you have iPhone 1 and then iPhone, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9, 10. Every generation gets better and better, and you really see that between these two platforms, between our first generation and our second generation platform. It's about a 4-year technology gap between the two, and I think everybody can appreciate how fast technology can move in 4 years at a chipset level, at a software level, at a cellular level, at a sensor level. And so really you see everything become much, much better in that period of time. We have a better touch screen, it's glass capacitive, a better camera, it's 5 megapixel HD, a better processor, Snapdragon, which I'll talk about, dual path, and on down the list. We'll kind of get into some of this as we go through this today. And all that comes together to make a really powerful platform that, again, works very well, is reliable, robust, and can do the things that you need it to do and need to be able to offer to your customers in this day and age. It's ultra thin, right? It's extremely thin. It's less than an inch thick, and that's everything included. A lot of this has to do with the chipset design, the layout, Foxconn, Qualcomm, all of our technology partners, and the ability to kind of make all this stuff work together. It's pretty amazing what we're able to fit into this small of a platform. From a user experience perspective, we wanted it to be easy to use, and we wanted it to mimic devices that customers are already used to using. So what that means is a dynamic swiping user interface. Not every page will show on every panel. If they don't have lights, they won't get a light page. If they don't have locks, they won't get a lock page, and so on. And so it's a very smart, kind of intuitive user interface that matches what they have installed in their home and becomes easy to use. We also designed it to be consistent with Alarm.com. So we work closely with them, as I mentioned before, and this is also on the design front. We want the apps, the watch, the iPad, the web, the panel to all have a similar look and feel, so that they have a consistent user experience for the customer. So we work pretty closely with them on that. I want to switch gears a little bit from that and talk about the inside of the panel. This to me is really, really important, as much as what you see on the outside, as much as how it looks and the actual features and benefits that we'll talk about. One of the things that I think is actually most important about the platform is what you don't see. It's what's on the inside. It's the architecture. It's the way that it's built that really makes the difference in a platform. To be able to do all those external facing things, you have to have the right internals. And so we start with Qualcomm Snapdragon chipset. It's called an SoC, or system on a chip. And what this is a fully integrated chipset that comes to us directly from Qualcomm. It's installed in tens of millions of smartphones worldwide. Most Samsung phones run Snapdragon, and many, many other Android devices run Snapdragon. And on that single chipset, we get a 4G LTE radio, so the cellular card is built in. We get a Wi-Fi radio. It's a really great Wi-Fi. It's 802.11 AC. It can do 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. We get a Bluetooth radio on board, and we'll talk more about how we use that for Bluetooth disarming. We get a built-in panel access point, so we can hotspot. We can be a private network or a private little router inside the home for certain Wi-Fi devices, and we'll talk about how that has some benefits. And then we start with Android 5, but we have the ability to move forward as needed as well. And so that's all kind of comes on that Qualcomm Snapdragon chipset, and it gives us a huge amount of leverage and scale here, and really provides a robust foundation for the panel. If you go inside the panel beyond the Snapdragon chipset, we start to turn it into a true security system. We have to add radios and hardware to support sensors and ZWave and all kinds of other ecosystems inside our space. And so we do that through a daughter card structure. And the first daughter card, these all come pre-installed, ready to go inside the panel, by the way. There's nothing you have to configure here. There's nothing you have to snap in or add. You just buy it this way. But having this structure, this daughter card structure, gives us flexibility in manufacturing to be able to kind of configure it how we need. So the first daughter card is the PowerG daughter card, and hopefully you're familiar with PowerG, at least to some degree. I'm going to give you the synopsis here on today's call. But PowerG is a really great next generation sensor protocol. It's owned by a sister company of ours, DSC. I'm sure you're all familiar with DSC. And they bought a company out of Israel called Visonic many years ago that had invented this PowerG technology. And so it's a really great technology that we've been able to adopt into our platform. It's super long range compared to a legacy wireless sensor, about 4 to 5 times the range of a legacy sensor. They're bidirectional, whereas legacy sensors are one way, and that bidirectionality gives us a lot of benefit. We can do all sorts of things with it, like adjusting the signal strength, saving battery, sending commands to a device, changing sensitivity on PIRs, all kinds of different things like that. So the bidirectional feature on the sensors is super powerful. It's also fully encrypted. It's a military grade 128-bit AES encryption. It's a banking level encryption. It's very, very robust encryption. And it has what we call 50-channel frequency hopping. This means if it encounters any interference on the spectrum, it can actually just jump up or down channels, and it can dynamically do that to avoid interference. This ensures that it's super reliable and it works really, really well. So this daughter card comes standard. This is really what makes it the IQ Panel 2 Plus, is the addition of this daughter card, or this technology on the panel. And every panel has that. We'll talk more about this sensor line a little bit later here, but a really great, robust commercial sensor line as well. And just a lot of really, really nice benefits to PowerG. The second daughter card that comes installed on the panel is what we call the Security RF daughter card. And this is more of what we might think of in our space as a traditional legacy security receiver, right? So this comes in one of 3 flavors. This can come in 319.5 megahertz. If you're familiar with that frequency, that's the frequency that Qualsys has been using for quite a while. We also make an encrypted version on this frequency. We call it Qualsys S line or secure line. And then this is the same frequency that Interlogix has used for a long time. So Interlogix, GE Security, ITI back to the 80s. This protocol's been around for a very long time. So you can get it in the 319.5 megahertz flavor. You can also get it pre-installed with the 345 megahertz daughter card, and that would be the Honeywell 2 gig protocol. Or you can get it with the 433 megahertz daughter card installed, and that would be the DSC protocol. So what you end up with between these 2 daughter cards is what we call Dual SRF, or 2 security radio frequencies. And every single panel can do both frequencies at the same time. So you're always going to have PowerG as one of the frequencies that's in the 900 megahertz spectrum, and against that really great bidirectional sensor protocol. And then you're going to have one of the legacy security daughter cards installed in the panel, either 319, 345, or 433. Essentially what that gives you is a built-in takeover module into every single panel. Now you can choose to install new sensors on that frequency as well, or you could choose to make your new sensors PowerG. So the thought would be use the legacy RF card to take over anything existing in the home, save some costs there, reuse what they might already have and are used to in the home, and then anything new that you would add could be PowerG. And again, these can run simultaneously. You can mix and match. We support up to 128 sensors or 128 zones on the panel, and that can be mixed and matched between PowerG and the legacy RF daughter card. No limit one way or the other. It's just 128 total zones, mix and match as much as you'd like. So that gives you a very robust platform walking in the door to really kind of address just about anything that's been installed for the last 30 years in the marketplace, and then have some really nice long range capability in PowerG. The third daughter card that comes pre-installed on the panel is the ZWave Plus daughter card. So this is your home automation daughter card, and this is the next generation chipset of ZWave. It's called ZWave Plus or ZWave 500 series. And this is about double the range of a traditional ZWave 300 series radio, a legacy radio. We support up to 137 total ZWave devices. That's on top of the 128 security devices. And those are broken down into a couple different categories you see on the screen here. We support up to 80 lights, 20 door locks, 10 thermostats, 6 garage door openers, and 21 other devices. And another device would be anything that isn't one of those other categories. So it might be a ZWave water valve, it might be a ZWave repeater, dedicated ZWave repeater, it could be a ZWave siren, something like that would fall into that category. So what you end up with here is a very, very robust system. What we're looking at is a Snapdragon chipset, which gives us LTE, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth. And then on top of that, you have 3 other radios, PowerG, ZWave, and Security RF. You now have 6 different radio frequencies running in parallel here on a single panel, and everything coexists and works together nicely, which is a pretty amazing feat. We also have a 4th daughter card slot on the panel. We call this the expansion slot. This really gives us the ability to improve the product even further down the road. It kind of future-proofs us and gives us the ability to leverage new hardware over time as needed. This could be an Ethernet card. This could be some type of new radio frequency or radio card down the road. But having this flexibility here is really, really important to us. I'm gonna skip past this video here on PowerG, but again, here's the summary for you. You end up with a panel for every situation. From a marketing perspective, you'll see us market it as shown here on the screen. They come in a gold box, a silver box, or a red box, and that really helps you quickly distinguish what's inside the panel. So you'll see here in blue, every single panel gets PowerG, right? So we have that top daughter card, and then each panel has one legacy daughter card installed. So the gold box is 319 megahertz, the silver box is 345 megahertz, 2 gig Honeywell, and the red box would be 433 megahertz DSC. So pretty much whichever install you walk into, depending on what you need, you can grab the box from your truck, and you'll be able to take over those existing sensors and add PowerG. We also make it in a variety of cellular carriers. So Verizon and AT&T in the United States, TELUS in Canada, and again, this really just gives you lots of options here from a panel perspective, panel and sensor perspective. We're going to talk about some of these features here as we go through the training today. We really feel this ends up being, you end up with a solution that's perfect for residential installs, lots of features and benefits that end users care about, from Bluetooth disarming to viewing cameras on the screen to getting notifications on your watch, built-in glass break detector, photo frame, and more. So we'll kind of spend some time on each of these here as we go through it today. But quickly on the dual SRF I mentioned, this is signifying, in red here you've got your legacy sensor protocol, maybe shorter range in a larger home, and then you're able to add PowerG as well, which is going to get you a lot better coverage for those outbuildings, detached garages, sheds, large homes, things like that. One thing to keep in mind is on the legacy radio, as indicated by the red circle here, because we're natively listening to that protocol, we're not translating that protocol, we're not repeating that protocol. That gives us the ability to take over life safety sensors, so smokes and COs. So with some other models out there, when you use a translator, you're not able to do the smokes and COs because you're effectively translating and repeating that signal. In this case, we're natively listening to that signal, same as any panel would. And so that gives us that ability to take over life safety devices. We also think we end up with a really nice commercial solution here. This system is UL rated for commercial applications. It's UL 1610. And then of course we have all the residential ratings as well. 1023 and 985 fire. We're really well positioned for SMB and commercial applications. We have partitions, which we'll talk about a little bit. We have a screen lock. We can get disarmed photos so the small business owner can see employees coming and going. And we're tied off with Alarm.com's access control platform as well. So you can do things like double swipe the badge reader and it will disarm the panel. From a sensor side, on the commercial side, the PowerG really shines here. We get the ultra long range, works on metal and concrete. We do support up to 8 repeaters on PowerG. Now, to be clear, that's what I call a star diagram, not cascading. So you can't go repeater to repeater to repeater and get 8 miles away. By the way, open air range on PowerG is over half a mile on the IQ Panel 2. And if you were to repeat that, of course, now you're upwards, you're way up there. So on the repeater, because they have less interference, they actually go a mile from the sensor to the repeater, and then repeater to the panel would be half a mile. So you can go out to about 1.5 miles. Now, keep in mind that's baseline open air. None of us install systems in the open air without obstruction, so that's going to be reduced through walls, buildings, things like that. But as a baseline, that really helps you see the power of PowerG. Just a really, really great solution from the PowerG perspective, and we'll talk more about those devices. On the partition front, we recently added a new feature to partitions. We now support global arming and global sound distribution. We also support Bluetooth disarming that can be assigned to a specific partition. So these are new features that came out in the last software update a couple months ago, on top of the existing partition feature that we've had for a while. We support live answer on the panel. Now, live answer is when you can answer the doorbell directly from the panel. So we support the Skybell HD and the Skybell Slim. Many of you may know Alarm.com is coming out with a new doorbell as well. They call that the 770 doorbell. We'll support that one as well when it comes out. And this really allows you to just answer the doorbell directly from the panel. And customers really seem to like this. They don't always have their phone on them. Maybe they've got small kids at home that don't have phones at all, and they want to be able to answer that Skybell or that doorbell directly from the panel. This gives them the ability to do that. If they answer the push notification here to the panel, they actually get to go full screen. They can see who's at the door. They can talk back and forth and have a conversation directly from the panel. And from that same page, they can choose to unlock the security system and unlock the door, or disarm the security system and unlock the door, all from that same interface or that same screen right there without having to navigate to other screens. So it's a really nice interface directly on the panel. I'm going to skip that video there. In addition to live answer, we have what we call live view, and this would just be viewing the Alarm.com cameras on the panel as well, anything that's not a Skybell. We support all the new models that have been out for a while here, and as Alarm.com comes out with more and more models of cameras, we work together to support those simultaneously as well. Some of the camera models support audio, and if it supports audio, you'll get a microphone on the screen, on the panel screen, so you can have a two-way conversation back and forth, like this example here, where we're using it as a baby monitor to keep an eye on the kids, and we can talk back and forth to them. The cameras that don't support audio wouldn't have that feature. They would just have video on the screen. You can even leave this screen pulled up on the panel and it won't time out. So if you want to use it as a monitor or leave it on for kind of an extended period of time, you can do that. More recently, we just added support for live view on IQ Remote. So IQ Remote is the secondary keypad for the IQ Panel 2. So this gets installed a lot in master bedrooms, laundry rooms, things like that, other entryways. And you now have the ability to view the cameras and the Skybell directly from the secondary keypad. Now, as it stands right now in the current software version, this is video only, no audio. So you can't answer the doorbell or have a two-way conversation. You can't have a two-way conversation through the cameras from the secondary keypads, but you do get the video feed, and we're working to add audio and doorbell push notification here in a future software update, so stay tuned for that. Some of the other things we've done more recently, this came out in our most recent software update, is we're really going after some different vertical markets, and we're having a lot of customers, a lot of dealer partners come to us and say, hey, I want to go tackle the automation only space. I have customers that don't necessarily want security or need security, and therefore they don't want a security icon on the screen. They just want to use the panel as the automation hub for the home. And I've sold them an automation only package, and they're paying me every month for it, but they don't actually get security. Is there anything you can do, Qualsys, from a user interface perspective to address that vertical? in addition to my traditional security channel. And we said, yeah, sure, we can do that. So we've released this in the last software update. You actually have the ability to turn off the security page on the panel and turn on the home control page or the home automation only page. Basically what we do is we aggregate the first light, lock, and thermostat, and we show that as the main landing page. You'll still get all your traditional light, lock, and thermostat pages on the panel, but this really kind of takes the place of the home page of the security page. This works especially well for MDU, which is kind of a burgeoning market for many of you, are getting into apartments and kind of larger contracts with property managers, or other smaller installations, or just installs where you're not doing security, you're just offering automation only. A similar vertical is wellness, right? So we had a similar problem in the wellness space. We had a lot of customers and companies getting into the wellness, the aging in place space. And they're saying, hey, I really want to be able to offer this panel and this platform to my elderly customers. I want to be able to, take a picture and send notifications to their children. I want to be able to really make them feel safe and secure in their home, but they don't necessarily need security. In fact, the security page on the panel may just end up confusing them to the point where they accidentally set it off. They can't remember their code, and it becomes more of a detractor than a value add. Again, is there a way to turn off the security page and just have a PERS style page, a wellness page with a panic button on it? So yeah, we said we can do that. You also see the little check-in, check-out buttons on here. This is an optional feature that can be turned on in programming, an optional UI element, and maybe they have a nurse that's supposed to check in on them once a day or once a week, and the nurse can actually come and hit the check-in button, type in his or her code, and it will actually take their picture and send that out through the ecosystem. When they check out, it takes their picture as well and sends that out through the ecosystem. It's all time and date stamped, and just a really nice feature to have directly on the panel. The other thing we've done recently is we've actually, we now have the ability to show all the Alarm.com scenes directly on the panel. So we added a scene icon, and any scene that you would set up in Alarm.com as an end user is going to push and sync directly to the panel. That includes the icon color, the custom name, anything, all the rules around those scenes, things like that are all going to get pushed to the panel, and you can run those scenes directly from the panel. Again, this is all included in the last major software update. We're going to talk more about the install wizard here in a little bit as we get into it. We're going to actually show you how to program using the easy install wizard. But the essence here is that it's fast, efficient, consistent. It's really easy to use, whether you're a new tech or a kind of a veteran tech. This walks you through the actual installation process in a quick way, in a consistent way, so you don't forget anything. And we'll show you how that works here as we actually go through and program a panel here in a little bit. The panel access point I mentioned earlier, so we have the ability through Snapdragon to actually have an access point built in directly to the panel. You can use this as an extender almost of the existing network in the home. And one of the common use cases we see here is if you've got a Sky Bell or a video doorbell out front. Those are notoriously difficult to get good signal strength inside the home because they're an exterior device. They're oftentimes mounted on brick, stucco, stone, things like that. But we also know that lots of times the panel is just inside the front door. And so a really great use case that we see work from time to time is you have the Sky Bell actually paired to the panel access point. That then gets the signal to the panel inside the home. The panel then is able to pass that back to the home router and get that going through. So it can act like a stepping stone or an access point or a Wi-Fi extender inside the home for cameras, doorbells, secondary keypads that work off Wi-Fi, things like that is a really great use case for this. It's all kind of about placement. It depends the home, depends on when you're going to use it, how you're going to use it. You certainly won't use it on every job, but it is really nice to know you have this feature built in. When you need to turn it on and activate it, you have the ability to do that. Every panel also has dual path, which for us, dual path is simultaneous communication on Wi-Fi and LTE. Certainly it can work just on the cellular channel. You don't have to have Wi-Fi in the home in order to do an install, but when you do have Wi-Fi, you get a lot of benefits. on the platform. Dual path being a primary benefit. You get a lot of redundancy, reduced latency, reliability, things like that. We also do software updates over Wi-Fi as well, and that's another really important aspect of keeping the panel connected to Wi-Fi and up and running. We have built-in language translation, so we support English, French, and Spanish, and you can actually have what we call a bilingual toggle, where you can just change the language quickly between two preset languages. You choose which languages you want. Out of the box, it's English and Spanish. Up in Canada, we have a lot of people using French. Just really depends the area of the country you're installing, but these are very, very helpful in certain markets. One of the things we think about is security, obviously, and security is so much more than just a door sensor and a motion sensor today. We really have to think about it at the system level. So Android SE, I mentioned earlier, or security enhanced, the token-based version of Android, very, very secure way to process information on the panel and have handshakes back and forth with a token. We have a built-in firewall. We've got cloud token authentication and a secure connection to our server and the Alarm.com cloud. All of our sensors are encrypted, whether it's the Qualsys S line or the PowerG kind of military-grade encryption. That's very important. You've got visual verification via the panel camera, jam detection, and encrypted Bluetooth disarming on the panel as well, versus kind of a legacy open-air transmit key fob per se. We've got a built-in glass break detector in the panel, and this really comes in handy in certain situations. If you think about what a glass break detector is, it's a microphone, it's a battery and a transmitter, at least a wireless glass break detector, a battery and a transmitter, a microphone, an algorithm that's really programmed, designed to detect this frequency of breaking glass. And the panel has two microphones, right? It's got a lot of horsepower from a compute perspective, and so we're able to really fine-tune and make a really great glass break detector and have it built in directly to the panel. Now, glass breaks are all about placement, depends on the room, depends on what glass you're trying to protect. And so, again, you may not use this glass break on every single install, but if you're putting this in a kitchen by some glass, if you're putting it by a front entry and there's glass in the front entry or a side light or a transom window, something like that, this is a really great kind of free built-in glass break detector. We see a lot of success stories here. From the sales and marketing side, I think initially we thought that this might significantly reduce the number of glass break detectors, traditional glass break detectors that we sell, but actually we see a bit of the opposite. This becomes a really nice talking point inside the home, the ability to say, hey, the panel has a free built-in glass break detector that's covering this subset of glass in your home. Let's talk about other areas of your home that might need glass protection as well. And it becomes a really easy conversation with a homeowner about different types of protection in the home. You've got Bluetooth disarming. So Bluetooth disarming is something that's pretty unique to Qolsys, and we came up with this because we thought, heck, we've got a Bluetooth radio in the panel. What can we do with that? And everybody has a phone in their pocket with Bluetooth on it, and so we wanted to be able to use that to authenticate you for the panel. And it basically becomes like an access card or a tag for a card reader, but you don't actually have to do a swipe. Your phone, we do a Bluetooth encrypted connection to your phone, and this really makes it so that your panel can know when you're nearby and then can perform certain actions, namely disarming. And then off that disarm command, we can drive all kinds of other rules inside the panel and the sensor ecosystem, like unlocking the door, turning on a light, opening a garage door, etc. So I've got a quick video here. We'll see if this will play. In just one sec. We'll see if this will play okay for you guys on the webinar. Hopefully it's not too choppy. Kind of depends your connection speed. But here you've got mom coming home from the store. She's got her hands full with baby and groceries. The panel sees her phone in her purse. It automatically disarms the panel, unlocks the door, and if it were nighttime, for example, it could turn on the porch light. So lots of things you're able to do with Bluetooth disarming. And again, this is pretty short range. This is within 20 or 30 feet of the panel is when this kind of engages and works. So we know you're there. We actually think this pairs very nicely with Alarm.com's geofencing. So we always kind of say use geofencing when you're leaving, use Bluetooth disarming when you're coming home, and you can kind of set that all up to happen automatically. You know, when you leave the home, the geofence can automatically set back your thermostat, do something to your lights, remind you to arm your security system. When you're coming home, the Bluetooth touchless disarming can automatically disarm your panel for you because we know you're super close. You're not within a mile or half a mile. You're within 20 or 30 feet of your panel in order for Bluetooth disarming to work. We support up to 5 smartphones that can be paired directly to the panel, and customers can manage these devices themselves. There's an easy way for them to do that directly on the screen. So if they lose a device, if they sell a device, buy a new device, it's really easy for them to go ahead and disconnect their device from their panel and add their new device to the panel going forward. We also have one more sensor, and we kind of call these virtual sensors. So the built-in panel glass break, the built-in Bluetooth disarming, we call that a virtual sensor. But we also have a virtual motion sensor. We call it the panel motion. And to be clear, unlike the glass break detector, we don't treat this one as a burglary zone. So this one isn't going to report to the central station. We're not going to set off the alarm or treat this as a burglar motion detector. Instead, we treat this as kind of an activity motion detector. And this really allows us to do certain things in the home. It's just data, right? It allows us to collect that data. Maybe it's in a wellness application, and you want to see if your mom is up and about and moving for the day. You can see that based on activity from this camera or from this built-in motion sensor here. Again, you can turn this on, you can turn this off. Maybe you want to use it to drive a rule, turn on a light, do some other type of ZWave action. You can use this as a trigger for an automation rule and have this built in. The other thing we do with the camera is we take pictures with it. Of course, we do disarm photos and alarm videos. That's primarily the main two things. So when you disarm, we take your picture. We can send that out through the sensor or through the Alarm.com ecosystem. It can go to your computer, your phone, text, email, push notification, your Apple Watch, et cetera, et cetera. It's stored locally on the panel as well. We also actually, during an alarm event, we can take an alarm photo, but we also take an alarm video. So we actually just record a video and just turn the camera on and start recording during an actual alarm in hopes that we capture something. Now, just to be 100% clear, the alarm video doesn't push to alarm.com yet. It's a little bit bigger of a file, and we don't have the process in place to be able to push that to them yet. That is something that's getting worked on. So for now, the videos are stored locally on the panel. You can view them and review them locally on the panel. You can pull them off on an SD card if needed, things like that. You also have the ability to peek in now or peek in next motion. So from your alarm.com app, you can actually request a picture from the camera on demand or request a picture next time somebody walks past the camera. It can actually go ahead and take that picture and send that to you. We have an advanced sensor test, and we'll talk a little bit more about the sensor test as we get into some of the troubleshooting and tools here on the panel. But the concept here is that we want you to get it right before you leave. So we actually plot and graph the actual signal strength of the sensor, every open and close, on a chart for you. If you can see the little red and yellow line here on your screen, we actually are measuring this against the noise floor in the home. These red and yellow lines will dynamically change in every single home based on that home's RF environment and any interference that might be happening at that frequency. The way we do this is we measure the noise floor. We go up 6 dB, we draw a red line, that gives us 6 dB of margin. We go up another 6 dB, we draw a yellow line, that gives us now 12 full dB of margin, and then we plot the actual sensor on the graph. This allows you to see, if it's in the green, you're good. If it's in the yellow, that's kind of your warning line. If it's in the red, you definitely want to change something. So maybe it's adding a repeater. Maybe it's moving the sensor 6 inches from the top of the window to the bottom of the window, or left to right, things like that. If you've done wireless RF for a very long time, you understand and have probably seen that small changes in the RF environment can affect the signal strength and the reflections of those signals quite a bit sometimes. And this allows you to actually see that. Maybe you move a sensor and it gets better, maybe you move a sensor and it gets worse. And so rather than just guessing and kind of chiming it to see if it chimes, you can actually see how strong it's reporting to know that you're not going to have any sensor failures or RF fails after you leave. We do something similar on the ZWave side. We give you a lot of ZWave Diagnostics, counters and rediscover network and neighbors list, and we actually give you a network map and show you what's being a repeater and how strong things are communicating. And we'll talk more about these later in the training. We have something new on the panel called ZWave Smart Start, and this allows us to actually scan a ZWave device with a QR code and the panel camera. So this is a new way to pair ZWave devices. You can still pair them the traditional way, but this actually allows you to actually just simply pair a device to the panel without it being powered up. And then when you go plug it in, it'll automatically find the panel and be added in the network. This is great for pre-pairing devices. This is great for shipping ZWave devices to existing customers. Or this can be good for just new installs as well. Now, not every ZWave device has a QR code on it yet. This is something new that's kind of proliferating through the ZWave ecosystem. So you're going to start to see these barcodes showing up on lights, locks, thermostats, etc. over time here as the different manufacturers adopt this Smart Start protocol. It's already built into the panel. It's ready to go today. So if you had any ZWave devices that are Smart Start capable, you're able to do this right now. And we have a lot of other system help and tests on the panel as well, Wi-Fi test and cellular test and things like that. Okay, so we're doing pretty good on time here. I've been seeing a few questions coming in here and there. Don't forget to ask us questions as we go here. We definitely want you guys engaging with us. And we've got a lot of people on here still as well, so that's good. We talked about this a little bit earlier, the gold, silver, and red box panels. I wanted to show you the PowerG ecosystem. So this is a list of many of the PowerG devices that are supported on the panel. One of the really cool things about PowerG is that it gives us the ability to really tackle a lot of different tougher installations. And what I mean by that is, for example, many times you might be used to, one or two motion detectors that are available to you in a marketplace, or from another manufacturer, even from Qolsys. Traditionally, we had one motion detector, right? And it was kind of your average 40-pound PetImmune regular residential motion detector. If you look at the sensor line here, and this doesn't even have them all listed, there's 7 or 8 or 9 motion detectors on this list alone. You can do an indoor, you can do an indoor with a camera, you can do an outdoor, you can do an outdoor with a camera, you can do a curtain motion, you can do a dual tech mirror optic microwave, you can do PetImmune one. There's 360 ceiling mount motion detectors. So really any kind of application that you're walking into, you should have a detector available to you. You've got lots of different kinds of door window sensors. You've got an indoor siren, an outdoor siren. You've got recessed door windows, lots of different styles of panic buttons and key fobs and things like that. So that's really, really cool. And then the other thing I want to mention on PowerG that's pretty unique is the smoke detectors. So the smoke detectors on PowerG have a very unique feature built into them. We call it wireless interconnect, or one go, all go. And this is pretty revolutionary in the wireless smoke detector space. Again, because these are bi-directional, we have the ability to control them remotely. And what that means is if a detector in one room goes off, it tells the panel to go into alarm. The panel goes into alarm, but then it sets off the sounders on all the other smoke detectors as well. So it can wirelessly interconnect all these smoke detectors as if they were a hardwire system, which is really neat. And we have lots of customers. This is NFPA 72 section 29 listed for this application. So we actually have a lot of customers in different jurisdictions kind of across the United States actually using this as a primary fire system in a residential application. And they've got the AHJs to sign off on that. It's fully compliant with NFPA 72 on that. And so we see this being used more and more and more in primary fire applications, a panel with PowerG smokes. We also have the Qualsys S line of devices, which I mentioned earlier, and these are the secure line of 319 devices, and a lot of different nice options to choose from here as well. Okay, so we're almost an hour in, we're 50 minutes in, we're about halfway through the presentation here, and we've talked about a lot so far. This is kind of the end of the overview, features and benefits, really kind of giving you a baseline of what's possible on the panel and some of the things that you might see or that end users might see on the panel. So we're kind of right on time here, maybe slightly ahead of time. And I want to switch gears a little bit and get a lot more technical for the installers that are curious about installation and things like that. So we're going to dive right here into the hardware. The next few slides you're going to see here, these are screenshots directly from the installation manual. So we always like people to go through that and read that install manual. I'm kind of a reader myself, and there's a lot of good information in there that you'll find if you take the time to go through that, despite how easy the system is to use. So this is a picture of the front. You've got the panel camera, the LED light status. You've got your dual microphones on the bottom. You have your page indicators. Those are dynamic. They adjust and change automatically. And then in the middle, you kind of have your main user interface. If we flip the panel over and look at it on the back, you've got your single, double, or triple gang box mounting holes. So these line up with gang box mounting. Maybe it's a commercial application and you want to mount it to a metal box on a wall, on a piece of conduit. You can do that. It'll mount right to that. Maybe it's a pre-wired home and they ran mud rings or low voltage rings to the keypad location. You can mount right to that. Of course, you can mount right to the drywall as well. So a lot of different flexible mounting options for you. You've got your left and right speakers. Here's your microphones on the bottom. Your siren comes out the back as well. I want to point this out right here, this little hole in the lower left-hand side of the panel. It says the RF antenna routing hole. That's very, very important on this platform. We're going to spend a little bit of time on that here. You'll remember the daughter cards on the inside of the panel. That bottom daughter card was that legacy RF daughter card. Remember the 300 megahertz or 319.5 megahertz, 345 megahertz, 433 megahertz. So anything in the 300 to 400 megahertz range is called narrow band. And anything upwards in the 800 to 900 megahertz range, which a lot of the other radios are on the panel, Wi-Fi and cellular and things like that, Bluetooth 2.4 gigahertz, things like that, are going to be wideband. And when you're thinking about RF technology, wideband technology and narrowband technology don't play very nicely together, especially in such a small form factor where you've got a lot of different radios all working together, a lot of different antennas and radiation patterns and things like that from those antennas. It's really important that we have the ability to get the narrowband antenna as far away from that as possible. And when we do that, we really are able to maximize the sensor range on the narrowband frequency. So what we've done here, because the platform's so thin, we've actually got a little hole in the back of the panel, and you'll notice when you get your panel, it's going to have a little white antenna sticking out that hole. If you trace that antenna back to the daughter card, it'll be that lower daughter card, or that right here, you'll see it's this lower security radio daughter card, and you see this little antenna coming off of it. So it's very important that you stick it out that hole like it comes from the factory, and it should just go down inside the wall. That's going to maximize your security RF range. This again is the inside of the panel. You've got the battery, you got your toolless terminal block, you got your siren here and some of your various antennas and daughter cards, your tamper switch, etc. Now there is a big red note at the bottom of this page, and again, this is directly from the installation manual. And what it says is, caution, don't unplug the battery. Well, that seems kind of weird because we all know as installers that our number one troubleshooting tool on anything, whether it's a camera or a security panel or a phone, computer, it doesn't really matter, router, the number one thing that we do to troubleshoot first and foremost is to do a power cycle, right? And that really kind of reboots the system and gets it back up and running, and oftentimes resolves anything that may be going on inside the platform. And so that's true here as well. You can power cycle the panel if you were experiencing something weird or needed to reset it. You could certainly do a power cycle, but we don't want you to just unplug the power and unplug the battery. And the reason is this is a computer, right? This is essentially a computer. It's running an operating system. It's writing things to memory. And so with any type of computer or new tablet, phone, electronic device, we typically shut those down in a different way. And the way we do that is via software. So in the software menu, there is actually a couple different buttons you can use. There's a power down button, so you can go into the software and hit power down. And then once it's powered down, you can unplug the battery and service it and work on it if you'd like. Now, if you just want to do an actual reboot, if you're just trying to do a reboot, rather than doing a power down and a power back up, we actually have a panel reboot button built right into the panel. So you can go in there, put your screwdriver away, don't take it off the wall, don't unplug the power, don't unplug the battery, just go into the settings and use the actual panel reboot function directly on the panel. And then lastly, the last way, so those are called soft reboots. If for whatever reason you had some type of catastrophic failure, this would be pretty rare and far in between. You do have the ability to hard reboot the panel. At that point, you could just unplug the battery and the power supply, like you've been doing on your older systems, or you could press and hold down the power button on the side of the panel for 30 seconds. Now, if the panel's armed, you're going to generate an alarm, of course, but this would be a hard reboot and kind of a last resort. So generally, we don't recommend this. Looking at the wiring, there's a terminal block and there's a barrel jack on the panel. You can use either one. We ship it with a barrel jack wire for you, so that comes in every box, along with some spade terminals and the transformer. The dashed wire is positive. If you're running your own wire, then we encourage you to use the actual terminal block. Every once in a while, I'll see somebody cut the head of the barrel off and then splice that back onto their own wire. To me, that's just creating some connection point issues and some failure point issues. So you should just run directly to the terminal block. The terminal block is actually color coded. You have a red and a black one. We are DC power, polarity does matter. So we try to make that easy for you. And we support any transformer from 5 volts to 7 volts. Now, we now ship this with a 7-volt transformer. Originally, several years ago, we were shipping with a 5.5 volt transformer. That wasn't providing enough wire length to compensate for voltage drop in many longer wire run applications. So we switched to a 7-volt supply. So anything you're buying now for the last couple of years is going to have a 7-volt supply on it. What that means is in the installation manual, we say that you can go 100 feet on 18 gauge. You can actually go a lot further if you do the voltage drop calculation, but this is kind of a sandbag number. You'll get closer to 200 feet on 18 gauge. Now, if you're not hooking up to 18 gauge wire, and if you're maybe using an old keypad wire, for example, that's going to be a 22 gauge wire, 22.4. Just keep in mind you're using that as a power wire, and because it's thinner gauge wire, you're still going to get a relatively decent amount of voltage drop depending how long that wire is run. So on 22 gauge wire, we recommend going no further than about 90 feet with a 7-volt transformer before you're going to run into voltage drop issues. So keep that in mind. We do have 2 hardwire sensor inputs on the panel as well. They require a 4.7K resistor. They're a closed loop circuit, or some people would call that normally closed. And then we also support an external siren connection as well. Now, this is just an open collector. It pulls voltage to ground. It doesn't actually supply the voltage for your siren. So you see here in our wiring diagram, we actually have a separate power supply for the siren, and we're running the negative lead through the open collector and pulling that voltage to ground to make that connection. This does have a small relay inside here. The maximum current is 300 milliamps, which is relatively low. If you try to pull more than 300 milliamps through the panel, you're likely to fuse that open collector open or shut, and it's not going to work the way you want. So if you want to do a bigger siren, then we recommend using kind of an external relay for that application. We don't see a lot of people using the hardwire connection on this, though it's certainly possible. People tend to gravitate towards the wireless sirens. They're much easier and simpler to install. The PowerG version has an indoor and an outdoor version, so kind of an easier proposition than trying to hook up a wired siren. I want to dive into, so that's kind of it on the hardware side. I want to dive into the software side and some of the programming here. If you look at the main screen, you kind of have three distinct elements on the main screen. On the top, you have what we call the header and the settings tray. In the middle, the primary user interface, and the bottom is the page indication and the emergency buttons. Now, the header and the footer always stay consistent. So no matter what page you're on, you're going to have the same header and the same footer. The primary user interface swipes side to side and changes. One last element in the header is this envelope icon. If you touch this envelope icon, you're actually going to get a contact us. It'll have your information. You get video tutorials. So this has built-in videos on how to use the system. They come preloaded from Qolsys. You can also customize those videos and load videos on yourself with an SD card. And then you also get messages, alerts, alarms. And we call this the red bubble alerts. And this would be any issues you're having on the system, any alarms you've had, any low batteries or troubles or things like that will be found there. One last thing, you can actually change this envelope icon to be your company logo. There's two ways to do that. You can have Alarm.com automatically push your company logo down to the panel, or you can actually upload your company logo to the panel via an SD card. And we'll show you that in programming a little bit later here. One of the primary elements inside the UI is this settings tray, and this settings tray pulls down from the top. You can either swipe down from the top, or you can just touch the little bar at the top of the screen, and the tray will animate downward. There's a lot of good information on this tray. There's icons on the upper right-hand side, battery, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cellular, things like that. Those icons are touchable. So if you touch the battery icon, for example, it will give you a readout. It'll tell you charging, 99% or whatever. You've got a volume and a brightness slider for quick access. Here you've got your language toggle. You can see that this is currently set to Spanish. You've got clean screen. You can manage your photo frame and your nighttime settings here. You can hot link to your messages and alerts, or you can go to settings, and settings is where I want to focus our time here today. So once I go into settings, I land on a page that looks like this. It's a little bit small on the screen here, but there's half a dozen or so different settings here, and these are really meant to be kind of quick access settings, things that don't require a master or an installer or dealer code, things like adjusting brightness and managing the SD card for the photos, changing the temperature between Fahrenheit and Celsius, things like that. But if we go into advanced settings, it's going to ask you to type in a code. And when you get into the panel for the first time, you've got two options to do that. You can use the dealer code, which the default is 2222, or you can use the installer code, which the default is 1111. The difference between those is pretty slight. The dealer code is technically the higher level of access. It's going to have access to factory default to panel if you ever need to. It's going to have access to some branding on the panel, so changing that envelope with your logo, adding some dealer photos to the photo frame screensaver, things like that are accessible in the dealer menu. The installer menu is going to basically have everything you need to do a basic install. So up to you how you get into programming. Now, you can get into programming with the master code as well. 1234 is the default for that. That's obviously going to be much more limited though, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on that today, on what that can and can't do. Okay, I want to talk about getting started. So you've got a panel, you pull it out of the box. Inside every box is actually a quick guide. It's a single sheet of paper. It's got 11 easy steps, and it can kind of walk you through these steps. These are how you would kind of hand program them. I'm going to use the quick guide here for the first half of this install to show you a couple things, and then we're going to actually transition to the install wizard rather than going through the actual quick guide. So the first thing you got to do is you got to get it mounted on the wall or on your table stand. If we're wall mounting, I want to point out a couple things here real quick. One of the most important thing when you're wall mounting is right here in figure 2, where it shows this antenna going out this routing hole and inside the wall. So I always mount my back plate, I drill a hole and I fish my power wire, and then I drill a separate hole, a little 1/4 inch hole with my 1/4 inch bit, and I stick my antenna through this hole down inside the wall. And again, that's really going to maximize the sensor range from the legacy RF daughter card, that narrow band frequency sensor protocol. You can hook up your barrel jack or your custom length of wire. You've got a little bit of wire retention here you can use, and then you close the panel up. Now, the second most important thing is getting this closed properly, and this can be a little bit difficult to do. It's a very tight clamshell, and there's a lot going on in there. If we were in an in-person class instead of a webinar, you would all have a panel in front of you, and I would teach you how to do this. We would practice doing this. But you're just going to have to envision it here today on the webinar. There's two ways to do it. You can close the top first and then the bottom, or the bottom first and then the top. Either way, on the top there are what we call these little snap tabs. There's 4 of them along the top of the panel, and that's the toughest part to get closed correctly along the top. If you pinch them kind of in a downward manner, you'll actually hear them snap into place. And we've got a couple of really great videos on how to do this as well on our website, on our dealer portal, on our YouTube page, etc., our Facebook page, which we're going to get into all that here in a little bit. But anyway, closing this properly is important. Your first couple times you do it, it's going to be difficult to do. Once you get the hang of it, it's very, very easy. So I recommend you watch some of those videos here after the fact. If you were going to do a table stand mount, we ship it with what we call this little back door, so this little back wiring cover. You would end up using that, and you just snap the table stand into place. We ship every panel with the table stand. It's really up to you if you want a wall mount or table stand. That's your decision. This goes through and talks about the antenna, but I'm going to skip that video here. Next, you'd go ahead and wire up your power supply. This says 5.5 volts. It's a little bit outdated. Again, it's a 7-volt supply that we ship it with. And then you're going to go ahead and press and hold the power button on the right-hand side of the panel for 3 seconds to power it up. And that's going to go ahead and boot it up. Now, if you haven't already, we would want you to create your Alarm.com account at this point. The reason we want you to create it before you get going on the panel is so that the cell test will pass. You have to have an account created on the Alarm.com backend in order to pass that cell test and really to complete your install. So now's a great time to do that if you haven't done that already. In fact, I usually recommend you do it before now. It's one of the first things I do when I get into a home is get my Alarm.com account created, get it going on the back end, get the web services out to Verizon or AT&T, activating my SIM card, things like that. So make sure that you create your Alarm.com account as early in the process as possible. Now this is step 4. I'm going to leave the actual quick guide here, and I'm going to just go into the install wizard. So once you power up your panel, it's going to land you directly at the actual installation wizard, and it's going to walk you right through this. There is a little hamburger icon in the upper right-hand side. That's what I call that anyway. It's the little menu icon. If you want to skip ahead in the wizard or exit the wizard early, you can do that from the menu. Otherwise, you're going to go ahead and just get started and go through every page of the wizard. So we'll start here and kind of show you what that looks like. The first thing the wizard has you do is it has you connect to Wi-Fi. If you remember why we want to be connected to Wi-Fi, that's for dual path connectivity. It's also for software updates, things like that. So important to connect to Wi-Fi whenever possible. We'll hit next, and the system actually goes through and does a system check. So it's going to run a dual path test. Again, this is that Wi-Fi channel out to alarm.com. It's going to run that first and get the panel talking over Wi-Fi to the back end, so that it can download any templates you've set up, any zones you've set up, things like that. We try and get it working as early in the process as possible here. Next, it's going to go through, it's going to say it tested successfully. It's going to go through, it's going to check your AC power. Do you have it powered up and running correctly? It's going to check your battery. Is it plugged in and charging? And it does all this automatically. It's about 5 seconds per screen here. It's going to go through and check your ZWave's daughter card, your PowerG daughter card, and your legacy RF daughter card. And then after that, it's going to automatically try and run a cell test. And this is going to go through and talk to the towers. This is the reason I said you want to have your alarm.com account activated as early in the process as possible, so that when we go out and check for this SIM card registration and try and make a connection to the back end, that all goes nice and smooth. Now, if it doesn't go through, if for some reason it times out or fails, you're going to get an error screen that says this. It'll give you your IMEI. It'll remind you that you have to have an alarm.com account set up and running in order for this to pass. You could either skip at this point and come back and check this later if you just need more time for it to register, or you could go ahead and hit retry, and that would rerun it. Assuming it then goes through, you're actually going to get a notification saying the cellular radio is activated. It'll tell you the carrier, it'll be LTE, and it's going to tell you if it's how strong the signal is. So in this case, 3 out of 5 bars. Next, it's going to automatically download anything in the background that was already downloading from before. It's going to go ahead and make sure that the templates come through, that everything's working and talking to the backend correctly. So it'll basically self-program if you have any of that set up in Alarm.com, and then it will tell you that it's downloaded and ready to go. When I hit next, the next thing we're going to do is go right into the sensor menu. Now, if you already had sensors paired or pushed remotely from Alarm.com, you're going to get this View Sensor List button, and you'll be able to view any sensors that have already been added to your system ahead of time. If you don't have any sensors, you'll just have Start, and you can actually just hit the Start button, and the panel is going to sit here and wait for you to add a sensor. Now, there's several different ways you can add a sensor. You can scan the QR code. So all of our sensors are just now rolling out with actual QR codes on the sensors themselves, and you can use the panel camera to scan that, and it will learn that in. Or you can just simply open and close the sensor or tamper the sensor, and it will go ahead and the panel will auto learn that or auto pick up that signal. When it auto picks up that signal, this is an example of the screen you get. You get the sensor DL ID. This is the serial number on the sensor, or the DL number on the sensor. It's 6 digits long typically. On PowerG, it'll be 7 digits long, depends the system. You can, from here, choose your sensor type, your sensor group, your sensor name, your chime, your voice, etc. And a lot of this is done automatically for you. So lots of times, based on the code that's transmitted to the panel, we'll know that it's a door window. And because it's a door window, we'll preset it to a group 10 entry exit. We'll pre-name it front door. We'll turn the chime and the voice on. If it's a motion, we would call it a motion. We turn it to group 17. We'd give it a motion detector name. We turn the chime and voice off. So a lot of this is done automatically for you, and then you can kind of adjust as needed, totally up to you. Now, on the sensor name, you can choose from a whole bunch of names that are predefined there for you to make it quick and easy, or you can actually type in a custom description on the sensor name. And it actually pulls up a keyboard directly on the screen. You can type in anything you'd like. And one of the neat things about the system is that it has custom text-to-speech. So what that means is whatever you type, it's going to say. So it actually has the ability to read what you type and then say that out loud. It's not a fixed vocabulary. So that makes for some nice customization. I always tell people, though, be careful what you type because it will say it. And then you can choose to turn your chime or your voice on or off depending on the zone. The source is determined automatically by the source of the sensor. In this example, you can see that this was a legacy 319 device. It doesn't have any encryption on it. It's not a PowerG device. It's not a Honeywell or 2Gig device. That's going to populate automatically in here for you. After I'm done adding all my sensors, so I can hit save, and I can just add all my sensors right there from that same location. After I'm done adding all my sensors, it's going to take me right to a sensor signal test. And here you can do a quick kind of go, no-go test directly in the wizard. All you have to do is open and close each sensor. It will tell you strong, good, poor. It'll color code it green, yellow, red directly on this sensor test. If there's something that came in poor or kind of in the red, you can actually go use the advanced sensor test after you get out of the wizard to do some more advanced troubleshooting. But this is going to give you a good idea of a go, no go directly in the wizard. Next, you can enable the panel glass break. So this is simply turn it on or turn it off. You can add ZWave devices. So we'll go through this flow here. So let's say we had some ZWave devices we wanted to add. We would hit start. And it's going to say, make sure your device is cleared before attempting to add to your network. If you've ever dealt with ZWave very much, you know that adding a device is it's always a good best practice to clear a device before adding a device. So we provide that menu option for you here directly on the panel. So I would hit clear on the panel. I would then press the button on the device, and it would go ahead and clear the device automatically for me. I could then hit add on the panel, press the button on the device, and it's going to take me right to device pairing. Now again, this will actually know what type of device you're trying to add, whether it's a light, lock, thermostat, garage door, etc., etc. That'll be here for you. We'll predefine the name for you. You can give it a custom name and change it as much as you'd like, and it all just walks you through a very easy flow here. When you hit save, it'll add it to the list and ask you if you want to add another. Once you're done adding devices, it'll take you to an optimized network page, and all you have to do is hit start. It'll go out, it'll remap the ZWave network for you and kind of optimize those pathways for you, and you'll be done. You can also pair Bluetooth directly from the install wizard. So if I hit start, it's going to go ahead and search for Bluetooth devices. When it finds a device, it'll pull up a list of devices it can see. So here in this example, this is showing my iPhone, my smartphone. It happens to be named my name. I can press that device. It'll give me a pairing code. I'll get a pairing code that pops up on my phone. And once I hit pair, they'll be added to the panel successfully. Again, we support up to 5 smartphones. You can do this for the customer as part of the installation wizard, or you can have them do it after the install wizard if you want to skip this step. There's a very easy menu for them to kind of do it themselves from the main screens, user interface screens. You can add an IQ remote from here. All you would do is hit pair on the panel and pair on the IQ remote, and they'll automatically find each other. Remember, IQ remote is the secondary keypad for the panel. You can add users directly from here. Now, whether you add users from the panel or add users from Alarm.com, they'll all sync up. So you can kind of do that from either location. It's up to you. I'll show you what it looks like from the panel. If we hit add a user, I simply type in their name. I give them a user code. I confirm that user code. And then I give them a role. I can either give them a master role or a user or a guest role. And they're added to the network. Now we support 232 total user codes, or sorry, 239 total user codes. So it's a lot of user codes that can be added to the system. The last page of the install wizard here, or one of the last pages of the install wizard, is your contact information. So normally this is going to come down automatically from Alarm.com. It'll pre-populate your dealer information or your company's information here directly in the panel. If you want to edit or change this information, you can. If it didn't come down automatically from Alarm.com, you could manually type it in at this time if you'd like, or skip this. The last thing it's going to have you do is check for an update. All you have to do is hit start. The panel will automatically go out and check for an update as part of the wizard process. And that's really it. That's it. Congratulations, you're done. That's really all you have to do as part of the wizard flow. And you'll be done with programming. So it's really intuitive. You'll all get a chance to go through that on your installs if you haven't already, and it'll just walk you right through that programming menu. Now I do want to show you a few additional programming items that maybe aren't in the wizard, or just some things that you might want to be aware of. You could go in and edit these things after the fact if you wanted to. Really, it's up to you, but I just want to make you aware that they're there for some customization reasons. One, Bluetooth is part of the wizard, but there are some Bluetooth settings you can go set if you'd like. So you've got your pathway here. You just go into settings, advanced settings, installation, devices, Bluetooth devices. Once I'm in Bluetooth devices, I can go to Bluetooth settings. And this is where you would really turn Bluetooth on or off. Now it's on by default, and it can walk you through all that as part of the wizard. But if you needed to turn it off for whatever reason, you could do that. Or if you wanted to change the Bluetooth disarm timeout, you could do that. And the timeout is defaulted at 10 minutes from the factory. And essentially what this is this is like an extended exit delay. So when you arm the system to away, by default, you have 60 seconds to leave. But the Bluetooth isn't active for 10 minutes. So they have to be gone for at least 10 minutes before the Bluetooth will kick in on the disarm rule. And that's so it gives them time to actually leave the yard, get out of their driveway, load the kids up in the car, etc. You can change that. You can shorten that down to 1 minute. You can change it all the way up to 30 minutes. It's up to you. This goes through the Bluetooth pairing here manually, but that's pretty straightforward. The panel glass break, again, you saw as part of the install wizard. If you were to manually add it from the installer dealer settings, you just simply check a box. It takes you to the sensor programming page, and it's going to walk you right through adding it here. On the panel glass break requirements, we say 15 feet maximum line of sight. We support lots of different types of glass. It can work from stay or away mode. It depends on how you have it programmed. I'm going to back up here. Here you see that we can set this to away only on my sensor group. You can also have it operate in stay mode if you'd like. Now, I saw a question earlier. Somebody chatted in a question on how to actually test the glass break detector. By the way, keep those questions coming. We've had some really, really good ones. We haven't had any for a while. So please engage with us here and ask questions as they come in. But one of the ways that you can test the panel glass break is actually with a digital file that we provide for you. So this is a designed test. You can actually go to our dealer portal, which we'll show you here at the end of training. You can download a digital glass break file directly to your smartphone. And this is a calibrated file for the panel glass break in order to test it. So you actually can have that file directly on your phone instead of needing to use a traditional glass break simulator. There's an actual glass break test page on the panel. So you would go into settings, advanced settings, system tests, and you go to the panel glass break test. And on this test, you can run it. You can do a clap test to ensure the microphones are working, but then you can do a full glass break test by hitting the start button on this page. It'll put the glass break detector into test mode for 15 minutes. You would arm it away or stay, depending on how you have it programmed. And then you could use that file that you downloaded on your phone to actually set off the alarm and trip a signal to the central station. The panel motion detector, it can be enabled right below the panel glass break detector. Similar thing, you hit a checkbox here. It takes you over to zone programming automatically, and you can add this as a zone on your panel, have the panel motion act as a motion zone on your panel. Now, I'll just say it again, this is not a PAR zone. It won't trip the alarm. It's sensor group 25, non-reporting safety motion. So you're not going to get any signals to your central station from this, but you can use it to get text messages or trigger rules or just track activity in the Alarm.com app. The IQ remote, we talked about a little bit during the installation wizard. I wanted to show you one other feature here. You've got an actual test button, and again, this was in the install wizard as well. You've got a test button and a pair button. If you run the actual test, it'll do a network test for you. There's a test button on the IQ remote as well. So you hit test on the main panel, you hit test on the IQ remote, and it will actually run a network test. So this is designed to be done before you actually, or as part of the pairing process to the panel. You take the remote to the final install location, you run this test, and it will tell you if it has good network coverage, signal strength, and bandwidth throughput from that installed location. Because the secondary keypads are Wi-Fi based, and so you want to make sure that you've got good connection from the panel to the secondary keypad through the home router or through the panel access point. You can extend the Wi-Fi network. There's lots of things you can do here. The key to make sure is that the main panel and the secondary keypad are on the same Wi-Fi network so they can find each other. A couple other key programming fields I want to talk about here that you may want to go adjust or at least be aware of. The first one is loss of supervisory signals for emergency sensors. So this would be for smokes and carbons and heat detectors, things like that. Per UL spec, this is reduced to be a 4-hour window. So just keep that in mind. One of the things we see from time to time is that smoke detectors generally can't be repeated. And so if they're installed in an area where they don't have great signal coverage and they can't be repeated and the check-in time is reduced, you're more likely to get an RF fail on a smoke detector than just about any other sensor. That's a really good example of where PowerG can help a lot. PowerG smokes are going to not only give you the range you need to reduce RF fails, but you're also going to get that wireless interconnect we talked about on PowerG as well. So just keep that in mind. You've got two settings here. One is loss of supervisory for kind of all your traditional sensors on the panel. One is loss of supervisory for smokes. You can change this, but UL recommends that it be at 4 hours for smoke detectors. A couple other features I want to point out. I already showed you the panel motion detector and the panel glass break, how to enable those. They're off by default. But there's one other feature I want to talk about here that you might find helpful. By default, this is turned on, and this is called open close reports allowed for auto learn. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to actually pair a sensor to the panel and auto learn just by opening and closing it. So if you're familiar with Interlogic's panels, for the most part, the way you would learn in a sensor is you have to actually tamper the sensor. We allow you to either tamper the sensor or we allow you to open and close the sensor. Either one will learn into the panel. Now that can be really helpful in certain applications where you don't want to climb on a ladder, you don't want to have to tamper a device. You can just trip it or open and close it and it will actually learn into the panel. In other situations that might be a detriment because you might have a lot of signals coming in trying to learn into the panel all at once. And so every once in a while in a tough RF environment, we'll have technicians go into programming here and they'll want to turn off this setting, open close reports allowed for auto learn, and that way they have to actually physically tamper the devices to learn them in, and it creates a little bit more of a purposeful learning procedure. So up to you what you want to do there. We also have a really nice siren test on the panel or installer test mode on the panel. Maybe you're in an application where you want to go ahead and send signals to the central station. You want to test all your zones, but you don't actually want the siren going off for whatever reason. Maybe they have kids sleeping. Maybe it's a commercial building in the middle of the day and you don't want to bother the workers that are there. So we actually have the ability to go in and turn off the panel sirens. But more than that, we have this installer test mode where it'll turn off the sirens for 30 minutes and then it will automatically turn the sirens back on. And that ensures that you don't forget to turn that back on before you leave the site. So that's a nice feature I wanted to make you aware of. All right, two other things here that might be a little bit unique to the Qualsys panel in programming that can affect the behavior for you or for your end users. One is auto stay. So this is on by default. And a lot of people call this unvacated premises or something similar. We call it auto stay. This is where if the panel is armed away, but a delay door is not opened, the panel will automatically downgrade to stay because it doesn't think that you left the site. Some people really like this because it reduces false alarms. Other people have scenarios where they want to arm away and then they want to stay home for whatever reason, and they don't want to have to walk over and fake open a door to get this to not do that. So you can go into settings and you can turn this off if you'd like. There's one other setting that a lot of people ask about, and that is arm stay, no delay. So on arm stay, no delay, what this means is when you arm stay, it arm stays instant. So no exit delay. And again, kind of the opposite of above. Some people want to stay and then leave. They want that exit delay when they arm stay. So you could go ahead and turn this setting off, and that would give them an exit delay on stay every single time. So up to you how you want to have these set. We talked a little bit about users already. Again, we support 239 total user codes, plus a duress, a dealer, and an installer. That means 242 total codes, but 239 user codes. The About page is a really great page on the panel for you to be aware of. It's just inside settings, advanced settings, about. There's a lot of information here. Each of these sections are expandable, so you can expand the battery section and look at the battery health. You can expand the software section and look at what software is running on the panel. Same with cellular. You can get cellular information about your panel, how strong it's communicating, what's the IMEI, things like that, and so on and so on. So a really good page to be aware of. Oftentimes technicians don't realize what they're working on, what carrier, what signal strength, what software, and so we'll have them come here to the About page and really understand what it is they're working on, what software they're currently running, and that might help them make some decisions on whether or not they need to upgrade software or do something else at the install. There's a bunch of testing and tools built into the panel. I want to cover the main ones here. These are really built for installers, for the guys who are there working on the panel to have a successful install and to get information they may need. So there's a test for just about everything here. There's a Wi-Fi test that will ping the router and will give you a signal strength and a speed to that connection. This is not doing an outside ping. It's not measuring bandwidth to the outside. It's just measuring the local connection to the router. If you want to do an outside Wi-Fi test, you'd want to do a dual path test, and that would send it all the way to the central station and back. Here's the sensor test. I talked about this earlier. Now, you've got the go, no-go test in the wizard for the sensor test, but this is the advanced sensor test. And if you want to come in here and do some more advanced troubleshooting, you can do that. The very first page of the sensor test is what I call the sensor report card. It's got all of your zone list listed. It's been collecting data throughout your install. Every time you've opened and closed a sensor, it's collected that and stored that in the background. It's giving you an average dBm reading, as well as a word that's associated with that, strong, good, poor, etc. It'll show you the last reading. It'll do the packet counter for you. So most sensors send 8 packets when they open and 8 packets when they close. It'll kind of show you that packet counter. And then you've got the graph on the right-hand side. And you can actually go plot this on the graph. You've also got this little cog in the upper right-hand corner of the sensor report card, and this little cog will allow you to access the real-time noise floor. So here in this example, we can see that the noise floor is plotting right at about 98 dB. Plotting right at about 98 dB. That means my red line is going to be about 92 dB, and my yellow line is going to be about 86 dB. So remember, we go up about 6 dB and draw our red line, another 6 dB and draw the yellow line. But if you want to see how that's calculated, you can actually plot the real-time noise floor directly from the graph here. Here's an example of a sensor plotting along here, and my red and my yellow line. And again, these red and yellow lines move according to the noise floor in that particular home, that particular environment. And so they're going to dynamically adjust for that install. We try to say, stay out of the yellow, stay in the green. So green is good. Yellow is your caution, red's you're likely to have a failure. It's working today, but we believe strongly you'll have a failure in the future. There's not enough margin built in between the way the sensor is transmitting today and where the noise floor is at. And if you have any slight variance in the RF environment, that could drop you down below that noise floor or that threshold at which we can sense a detection coming from a sensor. So try to stay in the green here. And again, if you're in the yellow or in the red, then you want to take some sort of action. That action could be moving the sensor and retesting to see if you made it better or worse. That action could be adding a repeater, or maybe that action is just using a PowerG sensor on this particular zone, right? A single PowerG sensor is a lot cheaper than a repeater, and it's going to be a lot more robust. So this really gives you the decision points to choose when to stay with a legacy protocol and try and make that work, and when to just go to PowerG. Now, speaking of PowerG, we do have a PowerG test directly on the panel. It's a separate test. We don't do the graphing. It's really not needed. The way this protocol works is very dynamic. It's got the 50-channel frequency hopping. It's got the adjustable signal strength based on range from the panel, where it's kind of got this built-in algorithm to keep itself as strong as possible. So we don't do the plotting of the noise floor graphing on PowerG. You do have the ability to run the test directly from the panel, ping the individual sensors, and get a result back. We won't spend a ton of time on PowerG itself today, but one of the cool things is the PowerG sensors also can do a local sensor test themselves. They all have an LED built into them. And so right from the sensor, as you're placing the sensor, you can get a reading of strong, good, or poor. It's color-coded with an LED, green, yellow, or red. So that's all helpful in there as well. I'm not going to spend too much time on ZWave networking today, but I do have one slide here on that. We could do a whole webinar on a ZWave class and how to properly design and build a ZWave network. But the primary thing here I want to show you is that the ZWave network it's a mesh network, right? It's more than a single node talking to the panel. If you have a single door lock talking to the panel, you don't have a true mesh network. The other thing that I think everybody knows likely is that in order for something to be a repeater or to kind of build the mesh, it has to be a powered device. So in this example, this door lock here is not going to be a repeater for something else. The thermostat could be a repeater if it was powered off a C-wire. If it was running on batteries, then it wouldn't be a repeater. So just keep these things in mind as you're kind of really building out your mesh network. You want to make it as robust as possible. Now we've got some tools to help you with that on the panel. We've got a rediscover network page. Again, this is done automatically as part of the install wizard, but let's say you added some devices after the fact, or maybe you moved some devices around the home. then in that case, you'd want to come back here and rediscover the network to remap it. Once you've done the remapping, I always suggest you go to neighbor info or the neighbors list. This is actually going to give you a view of how many neighbors the device can see. And a neighbor is a node that it can use to hop through, or that it can at least see. You got to keep in mind the battery nodes it can't hop through. So keep that in mind as you're looking at your neighbors list. But where you should be concerned is if a device has no neighbors. So if you land on this page, you're checking the neighbors for each individual node, and a device has no neighbors, that's kind of a red flag to you. That means it can't see any other devices. It's not really part of the true mesh network. It's just relying on a direct connection to the panel. And that device is then going to be more susceptible to failure over time because it has no alternate pathways it can take if it ever needed to. So that's really what you're looking for here on the neighbor list. The second thing you're going to go check is the counter list. If these devices have been up and running for a little while here inside the home, if you're using them, locking doors, unlocking doors, turning lights on and off, things like that, then we're actually keeping track of all those commands in the background, and we will show you those commands on the counter page. So this really gives you a good view into the empirical data here on what's working and how well it's working. This is especially useful after the fact on service calls where somebody says, hey, my ZWave light doesn't work or it works intermittently. You'll be able to come here to this page, and again, you can see this from alarm.com as well, but you'll be able to come here and you actually can see the actual counters and how well that's working or not working. You can even dive in. So here we see over 5,000 commands have been ACT or acknowledged. Those are good commands. And we have one failed command in this example. That's a really good ratio. That's like 99.9999% reliability. So we wouldn't be worried about this network. What you're shooting for here is a 98% efficient network or higher. 98% is kind of deemed to be the user reliability threshold that people can kind of live with. If you turn your light on 100 times and 98 times it works and 2 times it, for whatever reason, just doesn't go through, you're probably okay with that. You'll just resend the command. Below 98%, we start to see frustrated customers. And so that's really how you want to gauge that here is what's your percentage of reliability acknowledged versus failed from a counter perspective. We also allow you to actually see the network map. So you've done the rediscovery, you've checked your neighbors, everybody's got good overlap, you've checked your counters, nothing's really failing. Let's go actually look at the network. And this is called the last known working route. So this will actually show you the route that the device took the last time it was used, what hopped through what's a repeater, is it strong, is it normal, or is it weak? And that actually gives you a really good visual indication of the way that the map is working. And sometimes this is very different than you might think it is. Sometimes ZWave devices kind of take the path of least resistance, and it might not quite be line of sight. It's not a very logical pathway for when you're standing there in the home looking at it from a line of sight perspective. So this really helps you understand how that network's mapping itself and maybe why. There's also a panel test. You can run a panel test at the end of your install, and it will go through and it will kind of check everything. It'll check the arm and disarm, the camera, the help videos, the photos, the siren, stuff like that. It'll go through and do kind of a complete system test all on its own. Okay, we're kind of nearing the end here, guys. We're doing good on time. We've got a little bit left here. Please keep those questions coming. We've had some good engagement. We haven't had a question in a little while here, so we ask that you stay engaged with those questions here and keep them coming. And Jesse and Whitney are doing a good job answering those. We've got some swipe-based navigation here. So this is up, down, left, right. This should all be very familiar to everybody by now with all the devices they use in their daily lives. And here's an example of a pop-up. This is the weather pop-up. I can either touch the gray screen, the gray side outside the pop-up, or I can swipe the pop-up away. Either one of those two things are going to get rid of this. In the upper right-hand side, we've got the envelope. Remember, this is changeable. This can be your logo if needs be. And we've got the contact information. You've got video tutorials. And again, these can be uploaded in programming via SD card. You can add your own custom videos if you'd like. Qualsys' marketing team can help you take our videos and customize them if you'd like with your header, your logo, things like that. And we also have access to the messages, alerts, and alarms, or the red bubble alerts here as well. On the bottom right-hand side, you've got the emergency page, police, fire, medical. These are configurable. So maybe you're in a commercial situation and you don't want to have the fire panic on here. You can actually go into programming and turn the fire panic off, but you could leave the police panic on, for example. Up to you and the jurisdiction and kind of how you choose to do that. On the main arming page, you've got the green arming circle, you've got the sensor list. It will show you which sensors are open or having an issue right there. If I press the green arming circle, I get the arming pop-up, arm stay, arm away. Now you've got two different modes here on the pop-up. You've got kind of the simplified page and you've got what we call advanced arming. The advanced arming tray is accessed by touching the arrow on the right-hand side. It will expand out and it will give you the option to bypass a sensor, turn off the entry delay, turn off exit sounds, things like that. So that gives you a great nighttime mode, for example, where I could turn off my entry delay and turn off my exit beeps, and then go ahead and arm stay silently. This tray is what we call sticky. So if I open the tray, it's going to stay open each arming cycle. If I close the tray, it'll stay closed each arming cycle. So it kind of follows what the last use case was. On the lights page, that's typically the second dot here on the bottom of the screen. On the lights page here, you've got a lot of different ways to use the lights. You can choose multiple lights with the check boxes here and then hit on or off to control multiple things at once. You can control them individually from the icons on the left-hand side. If you've got a lamp module that does energy metering, you actually can see the real-time energy by touching the lightning bolt, and you'll get a pop-up of that actual real-time energy usage directly on the panel screen. If I've got door locks, and again, we support up to 80 lights. If I've got door locks, we support up to 20 door locks. You can either unlock all or lock all here directly on the screen, or I can control it individually. If I have multiple door locks, I'll get vertical dots here on the left-hand side, and I can swipe up and down between the individual locks. Now, not shown on this screenshot, but it is there on a real panel, is the actual battery status for the door lock. So that can actually show here right next to this little get status icon. You actually can see the battery status for all the door locks on the individual door lock pages. Same with thermostat here. You've got the battery level here on the thermostat. You can swipe up and down between multiple thermostats. You can set it to heat, cool, or auto. You can change the fan. You can see the current temperature. That's all kind of built here on the thermostat page. The garage door page is a real nice page, and this works now. This is a brand new feature. Used to be that we could only show you ZWave garage door openers that were paired directly to the panel. We now have the ability to show the LiftMaster garage door openers as well. So all the MyQ openers that are out there and working to the Alarm.com app, that user interface also pushes down to the panel. So no matter what garage door solution you choose, you should be able to show that directly on the panel. They can open them, close them, see individual status, switch between garage doors, things like that, directly here on the panel. And again, that's for LiftMaster and the Alarm.com solution, as well as the ZWave garage door openers as well. We support up to 6 garage door openers on the panel. Here's an example of what the live view page looks like. So this would be if you went to Alarm.com and you authorized the cameras to stream to the panel. This is a privacy setting that has to be enabled by the end user on the end user website. It's going to go ahead and push down a new page to the panel. It'll give them a list of all their cameras. By the way, they don't have to authorize all cameras. They can choose if they just want to authorize certain cameras to go to the panel, they can do that. And when they get that list of cameras, if they touch a camera, it'll actually go full screen. Again, if the camera supports audio, they'll get an audio piece to it as well, and they can talk back and forth to it. But the key component here is that this is a privacy setting enabled by the customer. So this is something they have to turn on. And once they turn it on from the end user website, it'll automatically show up at the panel. There is no panel programming to do. It's very, very simple. Just enable it from alarm.com and it'll just work on the panel. Same thing here with the doorbell, right? So the doorbell push notification, that's a setting here on alarm.com. They can choose to send button push notifications to the panel or motion notifications to the panel. So if when you walk up on the porch and the Skybell sees motion, without even pressing the button, they can get a pop-up on the panel if they want. And again, that's configured by them. That'll make the pop-up work, and then they can press the pop-up, and they're going to get the actual live answer page where they can talk back and forth, disarm the security system, unlock the doors, or end the call. These icons are dynamic, of course. If they don't have a door lock, they wouldn't see that icon. If they do, they will. They can control multiple locks from that icon, so really, really nice interface there. The very last page on the system is what we call the Manage My System page. This actually is designed to help the end users keep their system up to date. Oftentimes they change routers without you knowing. We want them to easily be able to access Wi-Fi, so they can do that from here. They can tell when new software is available, and they can keep themselves up to date. You can also do that as well. You can push software from the dealer portal, the Alarm.com dealer portal, and they can manage their own Bluetooth devices, and this is where they would do that right from this Bluetooth icon. It walks them through a flow of adding or editing or deleting their existing Bluetooth devices. Okay, we're getting close to the end here, guys. I want to talk about support. We've got a lot of really great ways we support you. One of the primary ways we do that is through our dealer portal. And we really want you to have access to the dealer portal. If you don't already, please do this right now while you're listening to me, or write it down on a piece of paper. Our website is dealers.qualsys.com. That's the dealer portal website. When you go on there, there will be a link to register for the dealer portal. So please go through that flow, and it will actually, you'll type in a username and a password. That then sends a notice to our internal marketing team, and typically we approve your dealer portal access within about 24 hours. Now, the types of content that's on the dealer portal, we have a lot of videos, training videos, end user videos, customer videos, things like that. We have a full LMS. You can actually go through our learning management system and get Qolsys certified. That's a more in-depth version of today's training. You can go at your own pace and get a certificate after the fact that you passed. We have links to download our panel simulators. These are good for Android and iPhone, as well as for a laptop. Basically, this gives you a panel in your pocket where you can have a simulator running on your phone. Maybe you're a tech support agent working on a computer all day. You don't have a panel on your desk, but you'd like to have that up on the screen so that when you get a call from a customer, you can actually walk them through the individual pages and follow along from your computer screen. We've got sales slicks, help sheets, product flyers, announcements, software downloads, SD card stuff, all kinds of really good information here on the dealer portal. We also have a knowledge base. In the lower right-hand side of the dealer portal, there's a little question mark. You can actually go through and click on the question mark and get access to tech support. You can chat with an agent or have an email ticket back and forth with an agent. We also provide phone support for tech support. So if you'd like to call into our phone support, the number is 855-4-QUALSYS, and I'll give you that number if you want to write it down. It's 855-476-5797. So it's 855-476-5797 or 855-4-QUALSYS. We're open Monday through Friday. That's East Coast time, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. So you can access our phone support that way. That goes to our Tier 1 and our Tier 2 group. They're based in Toronto. If they can't help you or you have something more difficult than they're able to help you with, they can actually escalate to Tier 3, our Tier 3 engineering group, which is in Utah and San Jose, and we'll help you out from there as well. Now, if you want direct access to our Tier 3 group, again, you can do that through the chat window on our website, or you can email techsupport@qualsys.com. That's going to bypass our Tier 1, 2 group in Toronto and go right to our engineering group, Tier 3 in Utah and San Jose. It goes into a ticketing flow. It's not just an email inbox, but it actually creates a ticket in a ticketing system that we use called ReAmaze. There's a knowledge base, a searchable knowledge base with common questions and comments. So a lot of good self-help there as well. Now, I mentioned the panel simulators or the panel in your pocket. So again, we make this for iOS, Android, and for the computer emulator. You can access these directly from our dealer portal, or you can go to the App Store for iOS or Android and search for Qolsys or search for IQ Panel 2, and you'll find an app that you can load onto your phone or your iPad, and you'll have that emulator or simulator on your phone or iPad. Something else I want to make you guys aware of is our closed group Facebook pages. Many of you may have already seen some of these. This is a really great area to get tech support and help. There's a lot of collaboration that goes on these pages. Qualsys monitors these pages. We chime in all the time from an official standpoint. There's also a lot of other technicians out there in the field helping each other from all sorts of various companies. It's just a really productive environment. You have to be invited to these pages, or you can request to be added to these pages. They're closed group pages. They're not open for the public to see the content on these pages, and they're professional security dealer pages. So there's 3 that I want to make you aware of. There's official Qualsys technicians and installers. There's official Qualsys distributors and official sales and marketing. There's also 2 other pages that we participate in heavily. They're not run by us, but we do have admin rights for the Qualsys and Alarm.com installers. It's run by a distributor that's friendly to Qualsys. This one has a lot of traction. I think there's over 2,000 members now. And then, of course, Burglar Alarms Online, ran by Jake Vole and SS&I. Really good content going on there as well. Lots having to do with Qualsys. That one's less specific to Qualsys, but there is some Qualsys content on there. The more specific Qualsys ones I'd encourage you to join are these 2. Qualsys and Alarm.com installers, and then official Qualsys technicians and installers. Those 2 get a lot of really, really good traffic, questions, and kind of self-help on there as well. And that is really it, guys. We finished about 10 minutes early here. Some really great questions came in. I really, really appreciate your time on the webinar today. I know that was like drinking from a fire hose. We try to fit a lot of content into a 2-hour window here. And I've been talking for a long time. But look, we are very, very eager to help you. We're excited to have you on board. We want to make sure you feel supported and that your experience goes well with the product. Please let us help you. Reach out to us, reach out to our sales force, reach out to our marketing team, reach out to our technical teams, use our resources, visit the dealer portal. Let us find ways to help you, and let us go be successful together. So again, really appreciate your time today. We'll post this recording later if anybody would like to watch it. If you have questions, we're going to keep this up and running here for 5 or 10 minutes as needed. Feel free to chat your questions in. We'll stay on and answer them until they're all done. Then we'll go ahead and shut it down. So again, really appreciate your time today, guys, and have a great day and a great rest of your week. Thanks. Bye.